Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Now, I don't know about you, but I believe that children are the future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty that they possess inside. Give them a sense of pride. Sorry, I can't help myself sometimes. Although I do like to joke around and burst into song occasionally. I think it's a form of musical Tourette's that I'm afflicted with. But this is a very serious subject because education is paramount to every student in every country of the world. But many students are leaving education with huge debts on their shoulders, which, let's be honest, is not the best start in life for anyone. And I know here in the UK, for example, between £60,000 and £100,000 in debt. But in the US, student loan debt is the second largest type of consumer debt, with 45 million borrowers owing more than 1.5 trillion in student loans. But Michael Bloch, he dropped out of Stanford Business School to start Pillar and solve the student loan problem once and for all. And it's an inspirational startup story that is also solving a very real problem and even uses machine learning. So rather than give you any more spoilers, it's time for me to beam your ears all the way to New York so we can speak with Michael, who's going to share his story and how he solved a problem that nobody dared tackle until now. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
My name is Michael Bloch. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Pillar. We are a personal finance app that helps people manage their student loans and get out of debt faster.
Fantastic. And just to set the scene, I mean, student loan debt is the second largest type of consumer debt in America, with 45 million borrowers in the United States alone, owing more than 1.5 trillion in student loans. And I suspect those figures are pretty similar over here in the UK as well. I mean, but can you expand on these staggering figures?
Yeah. Hopefully the UK situation isn't as bad as what we're dealing with here in the US. But kind of where the problem comes from, kind of what you've seen over the last few decades is that as the cost of higher education in the United States has started to increase massively, and the burden of paying for that education has shifted from the states and the government into individual consumers, the amount of debt that people take on to pay for college has just rapidly risen over the past few years. And so what you find is that about 7 out of every 10 students in the United States need to take out loans to pay for college. And the average person actually graduates with about $30,000 worth of debt, which takes them almost 20 years to pay off, which is just crazy. And so it's this huge problem that millions and millions of Americans face today. And that's what we're working to fix.
Now, before we talk about Pillar, I'd love to hear about the story behind the company and your own very personal journey, because I believe it started as an employee at DoorDash, managing $100 million in business at age just 24, and your wife was about to graduate law school with $300,000 in student loan debt. And I've been trying to find the best solution for yourselves, for both of you. You just ended up more confused. I mean, can you share that story with us today?
Yeah, absolutely. So before Pillar, I spent the last 3 years at DoorDash, which is one of the big food delivery companies in the US, kind of similar to Deliveroo or Just Eats. So it was one of the first 50 employees there. I spent the first 2 years running the California region, and then the last year running the New York region, which again, collectively was a $100 million business for the company. So it was a really amazing experience, seeing the company grow from 50 people to about 1,500 people over that 3-year period. But then left DoorDash to go to business school over at Stanford, right when my wife was graduating from law school with, as you said, about $300,000 worth of student loans. So, we struggled to figure out what would be the right way to pay them back. We read blog posts and articles. We made our own spreadsheets. We even talked with a financial advisor. But by the end of the process, we found that there's really just no easy way to figure out what is the right thing for someone to do. And so I asked myself and said, how is anybody else dealing with this problem? There's millions of people out there that have had the same experience that me and my wife did. And so decided to drop out of business school to go and do something about it. So.
Wow. So you dropped out of Stanford Business School to start Pillar and solve that student loan problem. But where do you begin when attempting to solve a problem, especially when nobody has succeeded solving it in the past?
Yeah, so it begins with a lot of research and a lot of reading and talking to people. So I, definitely just started beginning and tried to understand what the student loan space really looks like. And it turns out that at least in the United States, the student loan industry has really been fundamentally unchanged for over 50 years at this point, where there's these huge companies that go by the names of like Nelnet and Navient and Great Lakes. And, these companies service the loans of millions of borrowers that are out there, and yet they're just incredibly difficult to use and to understand. And so what I found is that there's tons of people out there that just aren't sure what to do. They maybe set things up once, they never look at it again. And so what happens is that these people make mistakes and end up paying thousands and thousands of more dollars in interest than they need to. And so that's where, the genesis and the inspiration for Pillar really came from, is we figured out that we could build a much better solution, and happy to go into all of that from here.
Yeah, well, here we are in 2019, and you really do seem to have solved the problem, because I recently read that Pillar users will pay off their loans 4 years faster. And Pillar is so simple to use that early users have already linked 50 million worth of student loans into the platform. So for anyone listening that's kind of inspired by this story and they've got heaps of student debt that feels like this big weight on their shoulders, can you walk me through how anyone listening can get up and running and get the most out of Pillar?
Yeah, absolutely. So our apps are now available and ready for anybody in the public to use on both iOS and Android. And so you could download the Pillar app 100% for free and start using it. And so how it works is you sign up, you hook up your loans and your bank accounts. And from there, what we'll do is analyze the loan information, your income, and your spending to determine what is the fastest and the best way for you to actually pay down your debt and, get out of student loan debt faster. For example, let's say if you go to, a wedding this month and spend more than usual, we're going to look at that and say, hey, maybe you should just make the minimum payment towards your student loan. Whereas if you get a bonus or, you work extra hours and overtime, the app will tell you how much of those extra dollars to take and pay back your loan with. Because what we found is that these really small actions, even making a $5 a week extra payment could literally save thousands and thousands of dollars over the lifetime of the loan. And so these small actions just make a really big impact towards people's financial futures. And so the cool thing about Pillar 2 is that it's not just that it tells you what to do and provides these advice and this recommendations, but that you could actually do everything directly from the app. So instead of having to use your existing student loan provider, you could actually use the Pillar app to, move money from your account to your servicer, to fill out any paperwork that needs to get done, to refinance your loan, et cetera. So, it's kind of this all-in-one solution for your student loan, which we think is great.
It really is great. And I'm sorry to have to ask this question, but one question a lot of people will be listening and be thinking, of course, is, but how do you guys make money for this? And are you associated with any particular lender?
So it's a good question. We're not associated with any lenders. Like, we're not purchasing the loan or anything like that. As I said, all the advice and all the recommendations that we provide are 100% free, because our philosophy here is that that's how we could help the most amount of people, the greatest number of people with their loans. How we make money is we're building out some premium features that people could choose to subscribe to. So for about $1 a month, they could access, the suite of other stuff that will help them get out of debt even faster. But again, that's completely by choice. People don't have to opt into that. The core part of the product will always be 100% free.
And what I also love is the role of technology in Pillar as well. So can you just expand a little bit on the machine learning elements that you've introduced into Pillar?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've spent a greater part of the last year really building out this technology, and it hasn't been easy to do all of it. But there was a lot of work around being able to actually get the data from the different student loan providers to be able to make the payments and actually facilitate money movement. It turns out to be a whole lot more complex than we thought it would be. But in terms of kind of the machine learning and the recommendation engine itself. So this is where, we make sure that all user data is always private and anonymized and 100% secure. But we take all of this data and put it through this recommendation engine that we built to figure out, based off each person's unique financial situation, what is the right thing for you as Neil Hughes as an individual to be doing. And so when we look at, the thousands and thousands of users that we have, and we combine that into a big data set, we're able to make these really sophisticated recommendations about what is the best thing for each person.
So for anyone listening that's kind of curious and they just want to see how Pillar might be able to help them, how do they get up and running? Is it as simple as just downloading the app?
Yeah, absolutely. So they could just go to the App Store on either iOS or Android, search for Pillar, and download the app from there. And signing up and getting started with using it only takes about 2 minutes.
Cool. And what should they expect from when they've downloaded it on their phone? Let's say we've got somebody listening on their commute to work at the moment. They're downloading the app. What's the first thing they need to do once they get it on their phone?
Yeah, so there's really only two things you need to do to get started. The first is linking your loan with your existing student loan provider, and all that takes is the username and password to your account, and we handle everything else from there. So no messy details that you need to enter or anything like that. And then the second one is linking up your primary bank account, the one where you usually get your pay deposited, because again, what that does is gives us insight into, your spending, your income, and really enables us to give people the best recommendations possible. So just those two easy steps, and people are able to use the app from there.
Fantastic. And for any startup founders that are listening to us today, you've gone from experiencing a problem, launching a company, and then fixing the problem. From doing all that, what lessons have you learned that you think would be valuable to other people listening that may want to follow in your footsteps?
I think the biggest lesson that we've learned over the past year is, we started the company about a year ago at this point, and we went through a lot of iterations of really figuring out what is the best product that we could build for our users. And so, I think the biggest advice I can give to people at this stage of a company is before you go and raise money, before you go worry about, building a team, really just talk to the people that are going to be using your product and figure out, are you building something that is actually going to make a meaningful difference in their life? That's where when we looked and we saw the student loan pain point that people really have, it's really just about always having those conversations, staying as close as possible to the user to build something that's going to be truly great for them.
And it really feels like it's a universal problem that you're tackling here. And I know this everything that we're talking about today is a big problem over here in the UK as well. I mean, would you ever consider partnering with other countries and different systems, or are you primarily focused on the US at this point?
Our long-term vision as a company is actually to be doing more than just student loans, where really what we see Pillar as is being this automated debt management platform that could help people with any type of debt that they actually might have, whether that be auto loans, credit cards, mortgages, student loans, et cetera. And so, although student loans are a problem in many countries, we think that those other forms of debt are really applicable to people anywhere. And so, we see the Pillar product as being something that can be used globally over the next few years.
Fantastic. And looking at that road ahead, is there anything else that you can share with us about what's next for Pillar? Or I appreciate you might be fairly limited on what you can say, but are there any teasers that you could maybe leave us with?
So in addition to launching the product yesterday, we were excited to announce our $5.5 million seed round led by Kleiner Perkins as well. And so, now we're focused on, we're growing the team, planning on about doubling it over the next few months next year. Particularly on engineering, so that we could build much faster and, be able to help more and more people that are out there. So we're excited about all the new things we have in development and really, seeing how we could help millions of borrowers over the next few years.
So it's nice and easy for people to download. They can download Pillar app on iOS or Android, but is there a website as well that listeners could possibly check out? And equally, if they've got any questions, what's the best way of reaching out and contacting your team?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is pillar, pillar.app, APP. And so you could go there and you could type in your phone number and we'll send you a link to download the app on, whatever phone you have. And if anybody wants to get in touch, my email is michael@pillar.app, and always happy to chat. So people could feel free to reach out, and we're happy to help people with whatever their student loan problems may be.
I absolutely love how you've come across a problem here. And like many of us, we might just complain about it, do nothing about it, or just think, well, it's never been solved, it can't be solved. But you've actually gone out there, you've left college there and actually created a solution, which is a fantastic thing. And you've not only just created that solution, you're delivering real results and real value to students. And it'd be great to see how you grow and what else you can offer there. It's a fantastic startup story, and I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to come on and share that story with me today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Neil. Appreciate being on the show.
So Pillar uses data science and human judgment to get to know your unique financial situation and goals so you can make payments that actually fit your own unique personal wallet. So whether you have extra cash this month or running a little bit short on it, they're trying to provide students with options that work with you whatever life throws your way. And in doing so, it's enabled students to manage all their student loans in one place, and of course from their smartphone. And for me, it feels like a 21st century solution for digital natives. Oh, it's a fantastic story, and genuinely loved having Michael on the show today. But I'm curious, if you're a student, I'd love for you to share your story and also your thoughts about the Pillar app. And you can do that by emailing me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, or sending me a cheeky tweet at Neil C. Hughes. We started today's podcast with a song, so I'm going to leave by saying rather than singing. That's it, gang. School's out for summer, but a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.